And we're live!
Still dealing with light stuff.
Welcome to Awakening Warriors Podcast. Yeah, just another week, man.
If you hear some banging and pounding, the neighbors are working on their garage.
Well, they're not.
They have people working on the garage.
Correct.
So, I shut the one window, but...
What are we talking about today?
Triggers.
You look pretty triggered there.
I guess I was in the sense of, that was annoying, but...
That's a trigger. You just saw a trigger. And that's what we're about to talk about.
Yeah, so I guess how would you define a trigger?
Oh, fuck. Well, you should have gave me a little prep time for that.
I think we should shut that window too.
Yeah. Don't worry. It's all good. We're not going anywhere. So, trigger for me is, basically something you're per se offended about. To a degree. Like, annoyed, offended.
Yeah,
Something along those lines. For instance, you roundabout calling me stupid pisses me off. So, when you, insult my intelligence, did you remember to do this, or did you, and it's not even necessarily every time, it's,
And that's your interpretation of it, is that I'm insulting your intelligence, but my question
That's why I did the air quotes.
But you didn't for insulting your intelligence, you did for roundabout calling you stupid. So
Yeah.
I'll say, did you remember to blah, blah, blah? Did you blah, blah, blah? Oh, don't forget we need to. And then there's certain times where that's really triggering for you because it comes across, or you feel like I'm thinking you're stupid, and so I have to, remind you or have to say something.
Yeah, and it's not even necessarily that plain or that direct, because I might even not pick up on the irritation. Obviously I'm irritated, you know what I mean?
Oh, your own irritation?
Yeah, you know what I mean? So,
yeah,
it's very indirect. It's, just all of a sudden, bam.
And that's what I was going to say. My definition of a trigger is, I would, in addition to offended, I don't know you said annoyed, but annoyed, frustrated. A lot of times a trigger is something like a situation, a sentence, a word. Even more broadly speaking, in terms of trauma, it can be a scent, a smell, something that you catches your eye. But it's something that essentially is bringing you back to something that happened in your past, and it's triggering you in the present moment.
Yeah, pretty much. But it doesn't necessarily mean you relive that.
No,
particular
not at all.
It's kind of embedded subconsciously, and your subconscious picked up on it, but your your particular, consciousness did not, you know what I mean?
Mm-hmm.
So
those things can be things that you saw your parents do, something how you saw your parents react or interact with each other, how you saw your parents interact with employees, how your siblings treated you, then you could do something that would remind me of something my dad would say to my mom, and then that might trigger me, give me this irritation, whatever, and I'm not reliving and imagining my dad saying these things to my mom, but
your
it's something
subconscious
that
picked up on. And that's basically baggage to a degree, or trauma, and that baggage or trauma can come from almost anywhere,
Right.
So, whether it was a sibling or a parent, which we, a lot of our childhood stuff is developed like that. Okay, but then we go into life, and then we go, we have roommates, or we have spouses, or boyfriend, girlfriend, or whatever else. Yeah, past relationships that kind of dick us over too, and then we bring all of that into our new relationships, and it's kind of tough to deal with if you're not particularly aware of them, So,
especially in your intimate relationships, with your significant other and with your family member, those are the people that are closest to you, and so they're going to trigger you the most.
And that's what David talks about, is mentioned multiple times, like, your spouse is your greatest spiritual teacher, because we do know the buttons to push, and we do, we're obviously closest as far as engaging, or, like, we just
well,
know
like that
each other
intimacy
well.
piece
Yeah.
is there too, like,
Yeah.
and with that piece of like the spouse being the greatest spiritual teacher, that's exactly what triggers are our teachers. They're like opportunities for you to learn and grow and process through something, because clearly
Yeah.
something's still there.
Yeah, for sure. Jordan Peterson talks about like sitting down and writing through an experience or whatever. You know what I'm talking about. And basically, if you have an emotional reaction to it, then there is still something that needs to be resolved. And basically, that's not exactly what he was talking about, but he was. They go hand in hand, because it's obviously something that still is lingering, that needs to be resolved. That can be resolved. A lot of people just write that shit off and just say, oh, that's just how I am. That's how he is, or whatever. And fucking never hold anybody accountable to overcoming those particular things. They'll live their whole lives with the same trigger, because mom and dad caused them to have it when they were a child, and then you're fucking 50 having the same trigger, which is ridiculous.
And we know from experience, like we've talked about our relationship, like in the beginning ish, and like we were triggered a ton and weren't aware of those triggers and would get super defensive and start arguments based off of those triggers. And now I'm not going to say that like the same things don't trigger me, because there probably are very similar situations that I still get triggered by, but I'm much more aware of them. I've done like some work and some like observing the reaction that comes up in my body, instead of reacting, choosing to respond, or like, again, I think just taking those triggers as like opportunities to learn and as teachers. And it's not all the time. Like, I still very easily do react and don't handle my triggers well, but there's an awareness now that wasn't there in the past, like in our relationship, and I think we've just done more work, which makes it easier to flow through those things rather than have them be an argument every single time.
Yeah, we've evolved pretty far from where we used to be. And I think there's a lot more of a threshold or a tolerance for that shit too. You know what I mean? As far as, even like you used to get us, whoever, upset, every time that thing happened. And now it's, every other time or every third time, or, you catch yourselves a lot more. So there's, like I said, a lot more of a tolerance or a threshold for that behavior or sentence or whatever else. One of the triggers that I personally have, like, from that, and I'm assuming it's probably from my mother, to a degree, basically, like, kind of insulting my intelligence. So then when, I think that you insulted my intelligence, that upsets me, and then I turn around and, like, I don't know, snap back or whatever else. But then also, so, one, it's kind of complicated. Not complicated, but complex, because I could have stopped it before I snapped at you, right? Okay, and then you have to have an awareness of, like, okay, did I say something, like, was I a dick, and did I deserve that, or or can I catch it right now before reacting to him, because that's
right.
going to be a trigger. That
right.
in itself is a trigger
yeah.
for the other person, because now, they might have not meant anything by that particular sentence, but I'm like, fuck you, dude, and then you're just like, no, fuck you. Or you can be like, whoa, I'm sorry, did I fucking say something wrong, or did I,
and that's yeah, so like you said, it's complex, because like it can be like dominoes, because I can say the thing which is triggering for you, and then you get irritated, defensive, and then say something that is a trigger for me, and then it just keeps going into like argument.
Yeah.
But my other thing, I was thinking about that too. Like I can say the thing, and I think that has to do with like the intimacy. It has to know with the fact that we do know each other. That there are times I will say the thing, and then you might have like not the greatest reaction to it. And okay, hold on. I'll say the thing. You will not have the greatest reaction to it, and I can like ask, like, were you just triggered right now, or there are times where like I can still be triggered, but like respond in maybe not the best way, but like, yo, like you're responding to a past thing, or like I can just tell when the thing that I said was that specifically of me insulting your intelligence, and so then I'll say something of like, you are reacting to the past right now, like that, like don't take it on to me. It has everything to do with you and nothing to do with me, which isn't like the most helpful, but is also super true. Like when you're triggered, that's your stuff. When I'm triggered, that's my stuff. Like it really does have nothing to do with this person in front of me, because it could be anybody saying that at that point, and it would be a trigger.
Yeah, and obviously, you saying that in a better way could assist.
Oh, for sure. That's what I mean.
Well.
Like, there are still times where, like, I will bring up the thing of, like, you are triggered right now. Like, it's not me you're responding to. But I'm clearly still, that whatever you said was a trigger for me, too. So it's still, like, a defensiveness. It's still a pointing the finger at you.
But at least there's an awareness.
Right.
That's where the awareness thing is. Even though you're not able to control your response in a better way, you can at least acknowledge that you're right, it doesn't have anything to do with me, and you can fuck off, basically. This kind of thing. You know what I mean? So.
And that things, I think we talked about this with our hot relationship episode, but like being humble enough to like, okay, this person's right. Because there are also times where like I know in my head, like you'll say something and I'm like, absolutely, like I clearly was triggered just then, but like I'm also like walls are already up, I'm already feeling defensive and feisty, so I'm just running with it. Like, of like, no, I'm not, blah, blah, blah.
And
like, clearly.
Returns to the ego, too.
Right. Well, and that's why I want to talk about the silent observer, too, because that's huge when it comes to being triggered, because we don't always have to have a reaction right away when something happens. Like, and especially because there are clues that our body will give us. Like, our heart rate will, like, spike all of a sudden, or we'll get this, like, sharp pain in our stomach. Like, those are clues that we're experiencing something that is uncomfortable, and we don't have to react right away by snapping back. We don't have to like point the fingers. We don't have to. We can just like notice, like, okay, he just said. So for me, one of them is, this is just flat out calling me stupid. So I like may roundabout make you feel like I'm calling you stupid, but you will like at times flat out call me stupid, or like tell me what to do. Like when you like, hey, go blah blah blah. Like those are triggers for me, and so I can choose to just like, okay, he just told me what to do, told me to go X, Y, Z, and I noticed that like really irritated me. That like gave me this tight feeling in my stomach or this whatever. And then like it comes down to just extreme ownership, because then I get to decide what to do with that. Like I can learn from that. I can choose to have ego and start an argument. Like, but we're gonna have triggers regardless of. You will always have somebody in your life, something that will trigger you at some point. Like, those don't just go away.
Yeah. Yeah, for sure. I mean, the idea of it, though, is to, have as minimal triggers as, you can possibly have.
Right.
But they'll always be there.
And we talk about evolution a lot, but, like, I wouldn't want to have, and that's why I said there are probably still some triggers that are the same from early on in our relationship, but I handle them differently, and they are less often, like, and that's the point, right? Like, you don't want to be triggered by the same exact thing when you're 12 as you do when you're 54. Like, there's no growth there. Like, you're still triggered about this past situation, and you're not growing and learning through that.
Yep. And odds are, what you're triggered at 12 isn't probably going to be a very important thing, you know what I mean?
Depends. Some people have real rough stuff before the age of 12, so you never know.
Yeah, but generally,
Okay, sorry. 25 to 65.
What about what we discussed right before when we were downstairs talking about the joking side of things?
Well, you can explain, because I think you do that more than I do, and you, I think, have a different vantage point on it. So first explain what you mean by that.
So, she doesn't like it when I call her stupid. And obviously there's a
Makes sense.
there's a
But there's a deeper seated trigger for me rather than just like you're
Yeah.
being mean. Like it's very much.
yeah, yep. Fuck. So there's times where, you know, I'm just malicious, obviously, and I'm just like, you're fucking retarded or you're fucking stupid or whatever else, which are far and few in between typically.
For sure.
But it happens. And also there's times where I'm just kind of joking around, and so, and I know this triggers her, and I'm almost opening it up, offering her a
Don't even say that you're giving me an opportunity, which technically you are, but.
yeah, I am.
But.
Not but.
It's
but,
like this. Okay.
Listen.
Okay, I'll just let you finish your side of it. Go ahead.
So I'm not maliciously doing it by any means, and you know I'm joking. So it might like trigger you a little bit, but it's not going to trigger you in the same sense as it, you know. It might push that button like just like it might just barely press it down, you know, like whereas like I'm going BAM when I'm like a fucking dick, you know what I mean?
Trying to be mean, yeah.
Yeah, yep. Because like I said, I'm like, why are you doing that, stupid? You know, because I'm like stupid. Yeah, because I'm
That's
like,
how it comes out when he's joking about it.
yeah. So whether you think I'm fucking
Well, let
offering
me.
or not.
So as I'm sitting here thinking, like at first I want to say, I think most often you really are joking, but I think there are times where there's still a little bit of fuel behind those. But you're like, I'm not gonna full blown pound down on her button right now, but like I want her to know that I'm kind of irritated, so it's still coming out in this jokey way.
Yeah, which I think is very important because, you know, yes, I could not do that at all. But and then you could also not have a response at all too.
Mm-hmm.
So like, you know, at least I'm going into it, you know, in a playful manner.
And I will say, so this is the other thing I was thinking that like I processed as you were talking. And I'm not saying this is ideal. Like this is fine in our partnership, but and
yeah,
whatever
it might not work
works
for other people.
Yeah. But it's also I think has allowed me to work through that trigger more because I still have the like when it comes out when you really are angry and like that comes from that place, it still really hurts my feelings, but not near like it used to. And whether or not it's just because I've like flowed through them and things I've done, or whether or not it's just because you do like say that word in a joking way and we both laugh about it and it like gives it less sting in general.
Yeah,
that when the word comes with your anger behind it, I'm like God, that was rude, but it doesn't like me like it used to.
Yeah. So if you can find a way to make it, you know, the trigger's playful, I think that really helps just in general. Because then down the road, it's not so, like you said, and, you know, if you can just push the button halfway or whatever else, and make a point to make it joking, you know, like in a stupid voice or a stupid way of saying it.
So it's very clear.
Yeah, so it's very clear and definitive. Hold on real quick. I also find it interesting that I don't like to be called stupid, almost in like a backhanded sense, you know?
Mm-hmm.
And you can literally be fucking furious and call me stupid.
Flat out call you stupid.
Yeah. And I'll just fucking laugh. I love it when you do that, personally. I fucking crack up.
And then that triggers me.
Yeah.
When I'm mad and he's laughing at me, that's another trigger.
Yeah, because I really don't feel anything. It's like, you know, I was like, you're fucking acting like this, acting a fool.
It's because generally when it comes from that place for me, it's like very tantrumy. Like, I'm acting like a child, trying to call you names and hurt your feelings. And I think you do that too, but yours is very much, it takes you a lot more to get to that place, and you're much more malicious. Like, I'm angry having a tantrum and saying things, but yours, and we talked about this I think before, your words just have a lot more sting. And I think part of that, like, was also just, again, some of that trauma bonding was, like, set up for that. Like, I was so sensitive, and my skin was so, what is that?
Thick.
Thin. My skin was thin. Like, and not to say that I have thick skin now, but it's gotten thicker, I think, so.
Yeah. But I just thought that was interesting, you know, like.
That is interesting.
How.
Technically, the end thing is the same for us.
It's the same thing, yeah, yep. But it's how it's triggered, you know, basically. because it's how you call them stupid. If you call me stupid to my face, I'll be like, whatever, dude. Like, I don't give a fuck. But like, because the direct approach just doesn't work well with me. Like, I'm just like, whatever, dude. But if you come around, and do it a backhanded way and be like, like, oh, did you shut the door? Or, oh, did you, lock the cat up? Or, not that those have been a thing, but.
Yeah, but they're generally example like
Yeah,
did you
it's just like,
things?
but it's probably because I like already had, and I will say most of the time I think it's typically like already things that I was going through my head because like I process things in my head a lot before I leave the house or what I need to do, in order and like things in order to make sure it's done most efficiently or whatever, it is, and so typically I go through all these things and then like literally I just probably stop thinking about it. And then you're like, did you do this? And I'm like, motherfucker, yeah, I just did that. So, but yeah, teach his own. I mean, we all
For
have.
sure, everybody's triggers are gonna be different or the same. That was I guess I never really thought about it like that.
Yeah. So we define triggers.
I want to go back quickly because I think like a solution piece, like what can you do then when you're triggered? Because knowing that we all get triggered and what your triggers are, I think is first step, right? Like recognizing, okay, this person just said this thing and that really triggered me. But the silent observer, I think, is going to be your best friend in that. And what that means is you, like I mentioned before, like you're just an observer to the thought that pops in your head. You just notice it. You are noticing like a sensation, and that's why I mentioned those because I get those like sensations in your body. You're just noticing that, and then you can that time of just noticing, especially because we do run on autopilot. Like if we're triggered by something in the past, clearly it's been a program and conditioned, and so when we take the time to just observe that, like, okay, I just had this thought, I felt this in my body, like that gives you that pause to then be able to respond to that person or that trigger or that situation rather than reacting in a way that may not necessarily be how we want to. It's just this programmed, rather than like, okay, I'm going to notice these things. That gives you a pause, and then you can respond of like, I just like noticed that really hurt my feelings that you said that. Or like, for me, that's something that would happen. Or like, that just gave me a really crappy feeling in my stomach. Like, clearly that was triggering, and like have a conversation or just even
and
pointing
it sounds
out.
gay, to be honest, like sitting here listening to her talk about it makes me want to puke. But
I think it's also like my trauma whatever background, like I do this all the time with kiddos, like notice the things, notice the sensations, notice the thoughts.
But you're not wrong by any means. The silent observer has been a key component in our growth in general, I think, so yeah, it was definitely a game changer for sure. Because, and I'll say I'm probably better at it than you are overall, particularly the silent observer. Just because I'm a more logical person, I'd say, maybe.
And I have a lot more emotions running through me in general.
Yeah. Yep. So, fuck, what was I gonna say? There's something along the lines. Yeah, silent observer.
Makes you sick.
Yeah. No, I can't remember.
It sounds weird.
Yeah, it sounds stupid or fruity or whatever else.
And it's like not that. It doesn't sound like that in my head. So saying it out loud sounds very like, here, I'm telling you this thing to do. But like when that happens for me, it's not like, let me notice. Oh, that, like it's very like, oh God, that like gave me this pit in my stomach. Okay, there's a pit in my stomach. That really, but like this is all happening in my head where I'm like, I don't like need to respond. I don't want to respond. And then that processing and noticing for a little bit just like fizzles it out. It's not as strong as like initially when you first said the thing. And so then I'm not as reactive. I'm not as egotistical. I'm not as
attached
triggered
to that particular thing. Damn, I wish I knew what I was gonna think. Obviously, it wasn't that important. But so yeah, it's just kind of like a gap. And I wish I had the book up here since we talked about this. Remember the masculine book with it talks about Viktor Frankl, whatever the thing. Maybe we can throw up of course we could have a whole episode on just the silent observer, I think, to be honest. a kind of an in-depth thing.
Yeah,
general.
it's super interesting too because like certain books will mention things like that one, or Wayne Dyer has like a meditation in a book, and like so there's like different. It's all probably the same thing, right?
It's
but,
all
like,
the same thing. It's just fucking
different
rebranded.
viewpoints and different.
Yeah. Yep. So. So I went through triggers, went through solutions. That's it, I think.
I think the biggest thing is gonna have to be first to like be really honest with yourself. Like,
Oh yeah.
don't just write them off. Like, it is okay to be irritated. It is okay to be triggered. Like, again, those are things that you can learn from, and triggers are teachers. Like, so first, I think the first step would be because you have to be aware of it. If you're not aware of it, you can't fix anything. So knowing what your triggers are, just starting to pay attention to like what those are, is gonna be first step, I think. And then learning to silently observe the programs in your mind and the things that happen.
Now I got it, motherfuckers. The longer that you've allowed those triggers to go unchecked, the deeper they're gonna be. The deeper seated they're gonna be, because those neural pathways ran over and over and over and over and over again. So if you don't check them, so if like you're a parent, and you see some sort of like stupid shit going on as far as triggers or whatever with your children, if you nip it in the butt earlier than later, and like even teach them this process, you'll be able to they'll be able to overcome a lot of stuff a lot faster than your average individual, because it just goes and the intensity of the triggers, right? The intensity of the triggers obviously are extremely important too, because you're like if you're only married for 5 years or whatever else, and then
Only we're not even there yet.
And like for whatever reason, it's just like a super intense trigger, and that's obviously going to be very deeply seated inside you too. But I think typically length of time is going to be the biggest thing. So it's going to be these things are embedded into you for years and years and years and years and years. You're not going to be able to overcome them overnight. We've only known about the Silent Observer for like literally a year, 2 years. When
Maybe
did we start?
2, yeah.
Yeah, maybe 2. And it's radically changed our life, even in the process of 2 years, let alone fucking 10 or some shit. But and these are things that I've never heard of. Like I've never heard of. Eventually, there's a good chance. Eventually, I would have ran across them. With the books that we read and stuff like that. But I hadn't yet, and that's why I always fucking encourage people to hire coaches, because coaches are so typically they've already gone through so much and they have so much wisdom, and you're just paying them for that wisdom. And it's like, here, now give it to me.
Here's your blind spot. Here's your blind spot.
Yeah.
Which for you are things you literally can't see.
Triggers are blind spots typically, So, and they don't even necessarily directly point out your blind spots, because, like David said, he basically just elaborated. People kind of get offended and whatever else. Where, I like it when people point out my triggers, because I'm so interested to know what they are. Or not triggers, blind spots. Did I say blind spots or triggers?
You said triggers.
Yeah. I like it when people point out my blind spots personally. And he might have some truth to it, as far as even with me, because everybody gets defensive, with certain stuff. But if I see something that I can fix and that I agree with, I try to nip it in the bud as fast as I can. As far as blind spots go. So.
You're also a rare breed. I can imagine how some people would get offended.
Yeah. Yep.
It's like, yeah, I don't know. It can feel like an attack on who you are as a person. But again, a lot of who we are is programmed and conditioned. So.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah, and to a degree, it's not your fault who you are, right? To a degree. I fucking use that very loosely. Like, to a degree, it's not your fault. But, like, in my opinion, once you turn, 16, 17, 18 years old, then it's fucking your fault because you didn't get to choose like who you were at 7 years old and what
Right.
happened to
And
you
how
and
your
so on.
parents treated you.
Yeah, exactly. So to a degree, I'd say but after that, after you start, making your own decisions, living out on your own, doing things, then it's 100% your fault. You got a few years to, work through some things and like learn some things and then start processing through it after that because, otherwise you're gonna be the same fucking person living the same miserable life for the rest of your life. So day in, day out. Yeah, so I think that's really it as far as triggers for the most part. So
I think so. I want to make sure that we all define them, right? How we each define them.
yeah,
then
and
some
obviously
examples.
try like especially if you're a spouse, like have your spouse listen to this if only one side has listened to this, so they fully understand and try to get like a game plan because triggers are a huge argumentative point. Is that a word? Argumentative?
That is a word, but I don't know if it fits there.
But
a huge argument point.
Yeah, huge argument point. And it's just a cycle, right? Because it's kind of just trigger, and then that person rebuttals, and then that person rebuttals, and then trigger, and then it's a fucking vicious cycle of chaos. And so if you can get with your partner and come up with like a game plan, then it's going to be a lot different than if you're working on it by yourself and because if both people are aware, then you have two opportunities to overcome it, whereas if you're the only one or they're the only one, then now you got to do all the work by yourself,
Which is possible.
Which is possible, yes, 100%. Not saying it's not, but if they're open to it and you can get them on board, like that's the biggest thing, because you might just go bam, 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 over and over and over again, and then I have to fight it. Whereas if you just give me that respect or whatever, and only hit it once, and then understand oh shit, I didn't mean to hit that or whatever, because obviously there's times where we deliberately hit it, and there's times where we accidentally hit it, me straight up calling you fucking stupid. Like, I know for a fact that that's gonna fucking piss you off and hurt your feelings or whatever else, And then there's other times like you, and you go, and you don't even try, you're just confirming.
Yeah.
So, triggers.
All the time. I don't even have to try to piss you off.
Yeah, triggers come from all different shapes and sizes.
Yeah, for sure.
But yeah, I think that's it, dog.
Yep, I think I had one more thing too, but...
Dude, you should take that Viktor Frankl quote and make some content or something off of that thing.
You can make your first quote.
My first quote?
You don't look too excited. Yeah.
You want me to make my own content? Is that what you're saying?
Make your own content?
Yeah.
Make content for our stuff?
Yeah.
Potentially, I don't know.
Well.
You just have yet to delve into that.
Probably because I want to rip my fingernails off slowly.
Instead of doing that?
Yeah.
Okay.
Fuck that shit. I don't like computer stuff, and I don't like sitting, and I'm in my wounded masculine. I'm a doer. And that ain't doing it.
That is doing!
That ain't doing it for me.
I don't necessarily love it.
Oh, yeah, but you've got a lot more patience and, patience to deal with that shit. Fucking computer doesn't work. I'm like, WORK! You know what I mean?
You never have the time with our internet right now.
Remember when your laptop was all fucky and I'd shit, and then it just click on something and I'm like, fuck! You're like, come on, you're doing it wrong. I'm like, no, I'm fucking using it.
Yeah, that was messed up.
Yeah. Driving me nuts. We should be getting good internet soon, so. Alright. Yeah, this week, right? Yeah, this week, Tuesday. Cool. Alright, we Audi. Audi 500.
It feel like you always sneak something there at the end, and then in that one episode, you were like, said the thing, and you're like, I'm so glad I don't watch these.
I still am. Oh shit. Okay. Fuck. Composure. Alright. We're done.
Yeah, thanks
No
for
more.
being here.
Yeah. Thanks for taking your time and listening to this. We hope it helped you guys, kind of have some insight on triggers and maybe now, you won't be such a triggered little bitch. And
Let us know if you have questions. Like, obviously, again, we don't know it all, but we have learned a lot. And so if you have questions, because triggers can be really complex. So if you have questions or want to just kind of, I don't know, pick our brain about this topic and we didn't like cover something or something wasn't clear, like let us know. We're on YouTube. We have a Facebook page, Instagram.
podcast player.
Yep.
So like, share, ring the bell, comment, tag your friends, and that's about it.
Mm-hmm.
So
We'll
cool.
catch you in the next episode.
See you guys.